What's going on, everybody? Welcome to After Prison Show, and today we are definitely going to do something different. I don't usually do things like this. I think I've only done this like once, maybe twice in the past, but today I do want to do a reaction video on the TV show that's seeming to take the world by storm, Tiger King. Now, some of you may be wondering why I'm even doing something like this. Well, if you haven't seen the show, let me go ahead and warn you guys right now, you might not want to watch this video. Go watch Tiger King first, and then come back and check out this reaction and opinions type of video that we're doing here, because there probably will be some spoilers in this, and I don't want to spoil it for anybody. But it was just last night that me and my wife, we wrapped up the 7-episode series Tiger King, first going into this show with a lot of apprehension, thinking that this was going to be absolutely stupid. And I stand completely corrected in telling you guys now, it is definitely one of the best docu-series that I've ever seen. So with mentioning all of that, what do you say we go ahead and we dive? Damn, it's hot in here. I hope I ain't gonna be sweating in this damn video. It's like 70 degrees outside. Head first up into this video. Cody! He's not here, he's working from home. We need the AC on up in here. I'm trying to think of like how to even begin this, because again, we don't really do these type of videos, but I think I want to just start with like my overall reaction to Tiger King. My overall thoughts and reactions to Tiger King are wow and damn. You know, Joe Exotic, I don't know his full name. It's too many names and it's super long. Something Joe, something Passage, something like that. You know, Tiger King really isn't so much about the damn tigers. Obviously, that's what they do. I was surprised to see that, you know, so many people have private zoos. So many people own tigers. You know, one of the facts that they included at the very end of the show was that there's only like 5,000 tigers out in the wild, but that there's like 10,000 in captivity here in the U.S. I thought that was pretty damn crazy, but Tiger King really is mostly about Joe Exotic and the fact that this dude's ego gets the best of him. This dude eventually feels like he's untouchable and he can do and say whatever he wants to say, and also, this dude ends up trusting all the wrong people. You know, I was surprised to see, not the fact that most of the people who worked at Joe Exotic's zoo were convicted felons, most of them coming home from prison or have served time, but the fact that they were only making $100 a week, a little more than that. But Joe Exotic starts off as this character that, you know, I was rooting for. I like this dude. He's from Oklahoma, a gay dude. He had multiple husbands, like 3 husbands by the time it was all said and done. He showered these dudes with gifts, especially 4-wheelers. I have always wanted one of those myself. He owns a zoo, he films everything, and then he's got a reality show filming behind everything that he's filming. You know, it's not hard to imagine, at least for me, why this guy ended up on such an ego trip, and that ended up being, you know, one of his biggest downfalls, aside from also trusting all sorts of scumbags. And you know, I feel like After Prison Show can kind of relate to the whole filming everything, and sometimes egos get in the way of that. I'll be honest, I'll admit, you know, sometimes I've had an ego. Way back in the day when After Prison Show was booming, you know, I felt like Tom Hanks of the internet. I've used a different A-list movie star every time I've said like such and such of the internet, but I'm really nobody. And the sad reality of the situation for this Joe Exotic guy is, you know, that's what he is now. Except for the fact that, you know, the #1 trending thing is this show. I never could have imagined, probably should have, was hoping it wouldn't happen, that Joe Exotic was going to end up in federal prison serving a 22-year prison sentence. He was facing, what, like 79 years at first? And all because of his hatred for one particular person. You know, what is that saying, like it takes more muscles in your face to frown than it does to smile? That's almost relatable to like having a vendetta, having an agenda, having a mission to try to take down your nemesis or your enemy or somebody that you consider your adversary. It takes a lot of work to carry on a mission of destruction, trying to destroy somebody. And basically throughout the entire course of what Joe Exotic was doing with his zoo, that was exactly what he was trying to do all the while to the woman, Carol Baskins, who I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, I absolutely believe she knows what happened to her husband if she didn't have a hand in her damn self or a tiger's mouth. But that's all I want to say about her, because I'm going to be honest with you. I am scared of that woman. Folks, if you didn't take away from that TV show the fact that that woman is probably the most dangerous woman. Oh, shoot, I'm starting to sound like Joe Exotic. She's smart. She's really smart. And the entire time Joe Exotic was carrying out his mission of trying to sabotage and destroy this woman, she was just sitting back in the cut like a black widow, waiting for her opportunity to pounce and strike like a tiger. I mentioned in yesterday's video, before I had even wrapped up this series, how I never knew how lucrative a zoo could be. But after watching, that show, I realized just how horrible all of that was. And it wasn't just Joe Exotic. I was surprised to learn how many other players there are in this endangered species wildlife captivity zoo having game. One of which being somebody that the show really didn't focus too much on, but somebody I would have loved to learn a lot more about. A guy by the name of Mario Tabrou, something like that, who was a major kingpin back in the day, who ended up getting sentenced to 100 years in prison, appealed that, ended up serving 10 years, came home, and now has his own zoo. A very secretive figure that they showcased a little bit about, and I was definitely intrigued hearing that he is possibly the inspiration for the movie Scarface. That was surprising and crazy to me. And even though they didn't show it much, or even really talk about it all that much in the show, you could definitely tell how big of a deal drugs were in a lot of the people in the show's lives, especially on Joe's farm, his zoo. Everybody, it seemed like, who was working for Joe, or even Joe's husbands, all of them seemed to have their own dealings with getting high. And some of them even dealing with the harder drugs, the cocaine, and the meth. Tell you right now, I have learned this myself, so I speak with a little bit of experience in this department. Mixing not only what you think is a friendship with business, but also mixing an individual who is dealing with addiction in business. Those two things are probably top of the list in the worst type of things that you can do. Because when you mix friends or people that you think are friends with your business, and some of those people, if not all of those people, got drug habits, you're gonna think you can trust those people just because they're close to you. But the one thing that I saw, and I'm sure a lot of people saw as well with this show, everybody Joe Exotic had around him, he thought that he could trust. And every single one of those people had an ulterior motive. Some type of a way they were out for themselves. Whether it was a four-wheeler, some guns, money, drugs, or even like Jeff Lowe, who now owns Joe's old zoo, while Joe sits in federal prison somewhere probably by now. And this Jeff guy was probably one of the worst people that Joe could have trusted. Came onto the scene with a Ferrari, rented. This dude was like Ty Lopez in real life. A rented mansion, portraying the role of a millionaire, some sort of deep pocket investor. Joe loved that. All the while, this guy had an ulterior motive. Get Joe up out of the way and take over this zoo, which he's now building another zoo closer to Texas because they say Oklahoma is poor. That's where Joe Exotic Zoo is at. And what's he going to do when he gets this other zoo built? They're probably going to sell the one that Joe used to own. Even though by the end of the series, they painted Joe to be this horribly bad person. And what he did to the tigers, killing 5 tigers, and, anything that he did in relation to killing tigers, that's horrible. I am never going to condone any type of animal cruelty or abuse. Even though Joe was painted as this super horrible person, I'm going to be honest with you. My absolute reaction to the end of this, I felt sorry for this guy. I truly did. The only logical person that he had in his circle, somebody who reminded me of Cody, was his old campaign manager for when he was running for president, and then that didn't work out and he was running for governor. Joe Exotic did a lot of things. Country music, this dude was super talented. And I was rocking with this guy the entire show, rooting for him. hoping that Carol Baskins was going to go down, meaning get arrested, for which she probably did. The campaign manager was the only logical person that Joe Exotic had around him. And by the time it was all said and done, even though they were painting Joe out to be this horrible animal abusing monster, it was sad to see. Shouldn't have been surprising, but it was sad to see every single person damn near who had been a part of his life, a part of his zoo, was coming to court to testify against him in this murder for hire / animal cruelty case. And without even seeing all of the people who were going to court to testify against Joe, I already knew it was done for him as soon as they arrested him. He had a federal case. Murder for hire? You gave a crackhead $3,000 thinking this dude was going to go do something? You didn't even like this guy. What was his name? Alan? This guy reminded me of some people that I've worked with for sure. You trusted this guy to go do something that you probably didn't even think was really going to happen. And it obviously didn't, because as soon as he left with that $3,000, he went to South Carolina. He didn't go to Florida where Carol Baskins was. He went to South Carolina and just got high the entire time. But I knew it was over for Joe as soon as he got that federal case, because in the feds, you ain't beating them. The feds have like a 90+% conviction rate. And I don't know if he actually took a plea deal or if he pled not guilty and ended up getting the 22 years. If somebody knows, did he take the deal or any deal that was offered to him? Or did he plead not guilty and lose and get the 22 years? I want to imagine he had to take some sort of a deal. But it's crazy how this whole thing played out. You got this fat bastard who they're portraying as this hero at the end of the series riding off into the sunset on a jet ski, who got wrapped up with the feds, and I'm not exactly sure how all of that came about, how they actually convinced this dude. It seemed like they didn't even need to do that much convincing to get this guy to be a confidential informant, to not only wear a wire, but have a camera as well recording all sorts of conversations between Joe Exotic and Jeff Lowe. And then the fat guy goes to Jeff, brings him into this, and Jeff is absolutely game because he's got an ulterior motive as well. So does the fat guy. They all want what Joe's got, this zoo, these tigers. And Jeff jumps on board pretty quick, convinces the guy Alan. I mean, he really does the feds work for them. I'm intrigued. I'm so interested how well they did showcasing. And, even though I consider these dudes like scumbags, it is so intriguing to just see how freely they talk about the fact that they set Joe up. Damn near entrapment, what they did to this man, if that's even a real thing. And, I want to throw this in here as well. This is a point that really struck me, and maybe a point that not a lot of people picked up on. But during Joe's trial, part of what he thought was going to be his defense was the fact that Alan said that he went to Florida to the feds in his statement. But yet in the phone calls and on the docuseries, he absolutely says that he never went down to Florida. And Joe was just adamant about the fact that that was going to be so crucial in his defense. But as I'm watching all of this play out on this show, I'm just thinking to myself, man, the feds don't care. That's going to be such a minute detail that they are going to just brush away so fast. They're going to find a way to do so. Don't matter what the man said on the docuseries. Don't matter what he said on the phone calls. We got his statement saying that he went down to Florida. Don't even matter if it's true or not. They did old Joe Dirt super dirty. I mean, Joe Exotic. They did this guy super dirty. And the only people who stood in his corner, probably besides the mountain of freaking fan mail this dude's getting right now, were the campaign manager and his third husband, old Dylan. Sweetheart Dylan. Dylan was accepting them calls 3 times a day. I sure hope they got a Google number and they're not paying $15+ a call. Everybody turned their back on this man for one reason or another, and most everybody had an ulterior motive to do so. And you look at old Joe Exotic's situation right now, 22 years in federal prison. I imagine this dude is strutting his stuff all over wherever he's at, feeling like the Tiger King all over again. Might not even really be too concerned about the time, because he's definitely living his moment of fame right now. And they're talking about a season 2 of this show where they're going to, I think, primarily focus on the Carol Baskins saga. And rightfully so as well, Because I'm going to tell you this. They're going to have a hard time getting in contact with old Joe up in federal prison. I feel like that could really happen. Because, especially in the feds, they do not want you profiting from your crime. They don't want you glorifying that. They don't want you getting any extra, unwanted, unnecessary attention. And let me tell you something very real that could happen to Joe Exotic up in federal prison. They could end up putting his ass on diesel therapy. 3 years ago, it actually just popped up on my timeline this morning, as a matter of fact. I went up to D.C. I interviewed a guy by the name of John Kiriakou, an old CIA guy, agent, or whatever. He was a whistleblower who exposed waterboarding. When he exposed waterboarding, he ended up getting charged for some crazy charge. I think he did like 2 years, something along them lines. And he was getting so much media attention. CNN, all these big news networks were reaching out trying to get him to do interviews, that the feds put him on diesel therapy. And diesel therapy is where they put your ass on a bus, a train, or plane. And they are constantly transporting you all over the country, because when you're serving federal time, you're not going to stay just in the state that you're in. Joe Exotic being from Oklahoma, he's not staying there. They're going to send your ass to Alaska. They're going to send your ass to down in Texas. They're going to send your ass to Maine. You're going to constantly travel. The rhyme and reason behind diesel therapy is so you don't get access to the media. Nobody ever knows where you're at. You're not in a place long enough to even get your PIN number set up for the phone. You're not going to get no mail. You're going to come out of that situation. This is sad to say. This is something very real that could happen to this man. He could end up coming out of this situation looking like Nicolas Cage from that movie Con Air. You remember when he walked out of that damn plane? That man was looking like a man apart, even though that's an entirely different movie. It's almost a borderline torture method to keep you isolated and keep your location unknown. And I feel really bad thinking that that could happen to this guy. I hope it doesn't. Maybe the feds will play fair and let him be a part of this season 2. Joe Exotic's life inside federal prison. Another thing that I was kind of saddened by, there's 2 final things that I want to share with you guys. I'm going to wrap this up. You know, when it was all said and done and the whole world came crashing down around Joe Exotic and he ended up getting the 22 years, you know, there ain't nothing more scary than a dude who's got some time, who is scorned by that. And maybe he's got every right to feel scorned. Everybody he ever knew, or at least in his inner circle, turned on him. And now it seems like he's turning on everybody else as well, including the guy in South Carolina. What's his name? Old Doc Antle. You know, after they wrapped up filming Tiger King, the Doc Antle's zoo got raided. And he's pretty much off the radar right now. Joe Exotic started out as this guy that was ego tripping on a mission to take down Carol Baskins. And with the fact that he was feeling like he could never go far enough and nothing was ever going to happen, all the while they were building up information against him, cases, lawsuits against this guy. By the time it was all said and done, it all came crashing down around him. Both of his 2 previous husbands turned out to not even be gay, just in it for the pay and the toys. And they got aplenty. And the one that was still alive even came to court to testify against him. But even sadder than realizing everybody that you thought you trusted, you could not. And they all turned on you in the end for some sort of ulterior motive, whatever those might have been. Even sadder than all of that was what they mentioned at the very end. Probably an excerpt from, you know, all of the filming that they did on this show. I think they said they worked on this show for what, like 10 years, 5 years, something like that. But they had this scene of Joe talking about these 2 apes or chimpanzees, whatever they were. 2 apes or chimpanzees that he had kept in captivity for over 10 years. And to see the look on these animals' faces was just absolutely heartbreaking. I mean, it damn near had me in tears. And after 10 years, Joe finally took them to some type of animal sanctuary, I think down in Orlando or somewhere. And when they were finally freed, put in this big cage together, or this big exhibit together, they were just hugging each other. I thought that was a really powerful point to this entire series. And I think there was no better way for them to wrap this entire thing up than with Joe talking about those 2 animals up in a cage for 10 years, separated. Because now currently, that's where Joe Exotic finds himself, caged up like an animal. There's a lot of lessons that can be taken from this docuseries, and you know, it was eye-opening for me. You can't trust everybody around you. And you need to really like sit back at times and think about who you have around you, and you know, are they really good to have around you? Do they got drug habits? Can they be trusted? Do they possibly have an ulterior motive? If shit hits the fan, are they gonna have your back? Or are they gonna stab you in it? I don't usually do reaction videos, and I hope I did a good job on this one. As I wrap this up, I'd like to give this show and docuseries 5 shanks out of 5 shanks. There's not a better score here on After Prison Show a show could receive, or movie. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this video, and if you did so, please leave a like and a comment. Let me know, what do you think about Carol Baskins, and where do you think her husband really is? And as always, until next time, enjoy life, the free world. Never take a moment for granted. Maybe we can try to get somebody from Tiger King to do an interview here on After Prison Show, and make the most of every day. Peace! Damn chimpanzees, I swear that had me tearing up.